Alright, so this is going to be part 1 to what if Deku was Accelerator or has his powers. So to get into this what if, I gotta explain the rules of, or the powers of Accelerator. And this might be a little like lesson in physics, so bear with me. So his powers are that he's able to control vectors. So you might be asking yourself, what is a vector? In physics, there are two types of like labels you could apply to a variable. And what I mean by a variable is that things like speed, momentum, acceleration, and things like that, right? And there's two labels you could put on these. One is scalar and the other is vector. The difference between these two is that a scalar has magnitude but no direction, while vector has magnitude and direction. So the difference is, what I mean by that is that think about weight and then think about mass. Weight has a direction, which is a down, and mass does not have a direction. So that's simple, right? Mass is how much something actually weighs, while like weight is the mass times the gravity. If I don't know the exact equation, but that's how it goes. So in the show, they get a few things wrong with vectors. They say heat is a vector, which technically it's not. But things like you could consider like the heat waves and the three types of heat, like what's it called? The three types of transfers of heat, like convection, conduction, and radiation. Those could be vectors because they have direction. Speed itself is not a vector. It's actually a scalar quantity, but something like acceleration, which is basically speed, is a vector. So the way that these powers work is that all he has to do is like touch something, and then he's able to do the equations in his minds, and he's able to reverse or speed up or stop pretty much anything. Like he was able to, kick the floor and make like a tornado happen. He's able to make like black wings using air. He's able to, reflect bullets. He's been stated to even be able to survive a nuclear bomb. Like, he has so much control over his powers that he's able to kind of protect people while having like a fight throughout the city. He's able to reverse someone's blood flow by touching them. Like, this character is very overpowered. Like, the only reason, like the first like arc that he was in, they nerfed him, and like you might be saying like how they crippled him, right? They literally just like, as he was performing literal brain surgery, they shot him, and he didn't even die. They shot him like near point blank range. They shot him in the head, and he still didn't die because he stopped the bullet right before it did any major damage. There was a point in the series where he was actually able to go against a level, the ranked number 2, and he's ranked number 1, right? And he was actually able to it wasn't he demolished this man. And the number 2 Esper has a really interesting ability. He basically has antimatter, which in that universe does not exist. He states this outright, that it doesn't exist in that universe, and he's able to change the properties of this matter whenever he wanted to. So basically what happened was Accelerator learned and was able to adapt and made a new equation for that specific matter. and he was able to honestly just beat him, even though like he could literally change how the matter works. Like he was able to make it where if light shined through his wings, then he would like basically melt anything or melt human skin. There was a point in the series where he actually gets angry at the government and was able to basically put his hand through a building and throw it at another government building. There's a part in the series where he's able to condense air or the oxygen around him to the point where it became plasma. You know, with this type of like ability, there's basically endless like possibilities. Alright, so now let's get into the what if. It's sorry that first part was long. I just needed to explain everything he could do so people know how overpowered he is. So I want to say that Deku was actually born with this power. At first, his mother thinks that, you know, he was just born with a stronger version of her quirk, but she soon like realizes something's different because his hair starts to become like white and his skin becomes more pale. So she doesn't really know what's up. So when he gets older and he's able to speak, you know, around preschool age, she actually takes him to the doctors to see what's up. And they find out that his ability is not telekinesis, but actually it's vector control. So this is kind of a shock, and the doctor explains that his body is naturally preventing, you know, sun rays to actually hit his body because they find it, or his body deems it as a danger. So so it naturally blocks it out. That's why his hair and skin is pale. So, you know, right when Deku comes back to school, he tells everyone that his power isn't telekinesis, but in fact vector control. He doesn't really understand this term since he's still a little kid, and I would say that he has somewhat of a what's it called? The ability to learn fast, since he would need that to use his ability, unless he goes into like a berserk mode like Accelerator does, where he's able to just do everything like naturally. So he tells us to the teacher or the person in charge, and they're saying, wow, that's pretty amazing, you know. And they explain to Deku what a vector is in the most simplest terms, because, you know, he's still a little kid. And, you know, I would say throughout like growing up, I think Deku would be kind of a loner because of the way that his quirk works. And what I mean by that is that he would look, how do I explain this? Because he's so powerful, he has no fear and he doesn't really want to hang out with anyone else. He's just like, he has no real reason to, if that makes sense. He becomes more kind of neutral in a sense. He is kind of like Accelerator, but not really evil. Like if anyone's annoying him, then he could just like block the sound waves from coming near him, and he could just ignore people. And if they try to punch him because he's a jerk, then he could just nullify the attack, not really like hurting them, because, you know, Accelerator has shown that if people try to hit him, he's able to break their bones. So I don't think Deku's like sadistic, but I also don't think he's like that heroic in this version. But I still think he would want to be a hero just to do some good, because I think he would have a small influence by All Might, but not too much, because I think everyone in the My Hero universe has some influence from All Might, even if it's good or bad. You know, I don't think Bakugo and him and Deku would be friends, because he would not really notice people that much because of how his quirk works and how he's able to just ignore everyone. And he doesn't see himself as superior. He just sees himself as not really wanting to, get into all the other stuff, because I'm giving this personality because how isolated he's able to become. And, he doesn't really want to hang out with the children because he doesn't really know how to use his quirk yet. And if he does anything too extreme, then it could end up hurting people because he still has that field that's naturally around him. So as he's a young kid, he would stick to himself and he would just kind of stay that way, if that makes sense. And I think as he's gotten older, I think Bakugo would actually dislike him because of how quiet he is and how he perceives him as being thinking that he's superior to everyone because of how quiet he is and doesn't really pay attention to Bakugo when everyone's like giving him praise. Because Deku, I don't think he's the one to like show off, at least in this version of him. So I think they would be like a one-sided rivalry. So every time, Bakugo's even more angry because every time he tries to fight him, it does nothing because he could just reflect everything back. So it goes the last day of, middle school, and the teacher gives out those papers to see if anyone wants to do something other than become a hero. And he tells the class that there are 2 students actually going to or applying for UA. So I'm not going to say that Deku gets a recommendation because I've been doing that too much in my what ifs. So I'm going to say he goes to the regular path. So, when Bakugo learns this, he goes up to Deku and basically says, "Do you think you're better than me?" And Deku's just like, I feel like he would be listening to like music and he would unplug his like headphones and be like, "Oh, I'm sorry, did you say anything?" Because he doesn't really care. He doesn't care about threats, because anything people can do to him, he could just reflect or just nullify it through making the thing go through equilibrium. So what happens is that Bakugo, out of anger, actually burns his notebook, and Deku is like really pissed, but he doesn't say anything, and he just shrugs it off and he says, "Oh, I guess I'll get a new one." And this pisses off Bakugo even more. So it's the end of the day, and Deku's walking home to school, or not school, to home. He goes to that shortcut, and this is when the slime villain actually attacks, and it goes completely different than it does in the anime. The slime villain tries to wrap himself around him, but it actually stopped, and Deku just turns around and says, "Oh, I've never seen you before." And what he does is that he basically does like he like controls the air around him to make kind of like a vacuum to suck in the slime and like condense him into like a ball. Right when he's about to, hand over the slime over to the police, this is when All Might comes through and says, "I am here." And Deku's like, "Oh, cool, it's All Might." He's not like as obsessed with him because he has a quirk, and he like kind of sticks to himself and has no real interest in like being he doesn't really idolize heroes, so that's why and All Might is surprised that a kid can like do all this, like stop the villain, because in this one I don't think Deku would physically train. Clear. So what happens is Deku just hands over the slime and he just tells All Might he's on his I'll be on my way. And he just, like, All Might stops him for a second and says, hey, what's your quirk? And Deku says, oh, I can control vectors. And All Might's just shocked because he's never really heard of anything like this. If you guys have like an idea for the quirk name, like, I know I could call it Accelerator, but I don't know. I don't know if there's any like better ideas. If you have any, then, you know, comment down below. But yeah, Deku just, you know, just walks home, and the slime attack doesn't actually happen, like the one with Bakugo. So what happens for those 10 months? Is it 10 months? I'm pretty sure it's like 10 or 9 months. He basically, he trains in a way, not physically. He just learns new equations that he's able to do, and he looks up different things like in physics, so he could better understand how his quirk works. So when we get to the entry exams, the theoretical part, he basically gets like 100% on that, since he's been studying so much. And then he wouldn't trip, because if he would be like stable, because if he were to trip, his, like, I'm pretty sure his AIM field would activate. Like, I also don't think he would meet Uraraka at this point, because he sticks to himself. So, you know, when we get to the field, or the combat version, combat part of the test or the exam, Deku's just like waiting for, you know, the time to go off so he could basically destroy everything. And what happens here is that he doesn't really talk to anyone, so he doesn't get the encounter with Ida. So what he does is, right when, you know, President Mike actually says to start, all he does is like he taps on the ground, and this is what actually launches him forward. He's actually using his black wings to go even faster, and what he does, he just touches, like, he just goes around touching the different robots, and basically as they're getting touched, they're getting sent flying and being crushed, right? And he doesn't want to get too much points because he still wants other people to try. So after he gets enough to where he would pass with flying colors, this is when he hears a girl actually cry out for help, and everyone's running the opposite direction. You know, Deku kind of laughs and says, you guys want to be heroes, but yet you can't save a damsel in distress. So he kind of walks up to her and asks in a calm voice, he says, are you okay? Do you want me to save you? And she obviously says yes. And what he does at this point, he just kicks, he looks around and he sees a rock and he just kicks it. And because of this, it actually it has that kind of like black energy that you see in the show, and it just goes up to the robot's head, the 0 point robot's head, and basically it basically explodes, and there's like nothing left of the head, and it just falls over. And you know, this is the point where Deku like picks up Uraraka off the, you know, moves the rubble and picks her up and says, hey, my name is Izuku Midoriya, what's yours? And you know, Uraraka would be like blushing because it was basically her knight in shining armor, for a lack of better words. And you know, she would say, you know, it's Uraraka Ochako, or I guess you could say the opposite way, I'm not sure. And yeah, so I think in this version I would want to do a ship between those two, but I'm not sure, because they both affect physics, so it kind of makes sense. I don't know. So I think Deku will get the number one score because he has the villain points and the hero points. For this part, let's just say Uraraka still gets in. So I think I'll end it here, and then in the next part, I'll do it. I'll do the second part to this. I don't know. I don't feel like I want to do the Raph. Like, what if Deku had the Raph state and the Boo? What if he had Majin Buu's powers? I don't really want to do those because I don't have any like motivation to do those, and like a lot of people have done those kind of what ifs, like not the Raph state, but just if Deku was a Saiyan in general. So I don't really want to do that. I have no motivation for those two. I want to do more unique things like my D4C video, Prototype, and Danny Phantom, and this one. So I'm sorry for those people who really wanted those videos. Like, if I don't have a good idea, then I really don't want to do it. So I'm very sorry to those who, you know, sub to my channel for those videos in particular. I just don't have any motivation to do those. So I hope you guys understand that. And, you know, I'll try my best to do more unique, you know, videos in the future. So if you guys can, you know, like, comment, subscribe. You know, I'm almost at 200 subscribers, so I might do another subscriber special if I can and if I have a good idea. And it might be just as long as the first one. So I really appreciate all the love and support and the appreciation. You know, I hope you guys can understand that, you know, if I don't have a good idea, then I won't do the what if, or I won't continue it. So I'm sorry. You could maybe ask another creator to do it. So with that being said, this is the end of the video. So yeah.